so nice to connect with you guys that also love plants and gardening. And so I just love that in nature. So I met a lot of fun people on this app. And so if you have any questions, I'm going to try to keep this up so I can see both. Can you see this on your screen? This what is what is Bloom and Balance? Just I think so. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you, Marianne and Allison. All right. So, what is Bloom and Balance? So, before we spin, we're going to talk a little bit about what it is. So, Bloom and Balance didn't just come from nowhere. I have garden for years as well. I started with just like containers in on my back porch, and I'll tell you, the first year I ever planted anything, I planted Swiss chard, and it was in a planter. I planted all kinds of stuff like carrots and lettuce and all this stuff, way too much because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't water it enough, but the Swiss chard was like literally like this big, and I didn't even know how big Swiss chard should be. And if you guys don't know, like Swiss chard should be like almost like bigger than your head for the leaf. And it was like this big. And I was like, oh my goodness, look, I got a real salad. I was so excited. But I didn't know my way around. So I wanted to create something where people weren't left guessing on what to do and how to plan. And I wanted it to be all in one place, but also the benefits because I have seen a lot of gardening things, but they're not about the herbs that you could actually grab for your family. And so I really wanted to add that element into it because that's super important. So that's why I created it. And so I also have seen there are two types of gardeners that typically want to start a garden. And so we have our little overthinkers. And so these are the people that are like Googling every herb, researching their space, then comparing climates and scrolling on Pinterest and getting different layouts. They'll like get the pH of one, and then they'll get the root depth and all this, and they're researching and researching. 2 hours later, nothing's planted. The season has gone away because they're sitting there planting or planning, and they don't fail because they don't know enough, but they actually are just analysis paralysis, and they don't have a structured framework that they could just follow. And it wouldn't be that this researching all the time. And I've kind of been a little bit of both. I have been the overthinker where I didn't even buy a plant because, but the next one is more me. And so this is the random planter, and you can see from the photo, they are going to the nursery, they're grabbing up everything and not thinking about where they're going to put it in their garden. And so it'll either, like, sometimes they'll stay in a pot and sit in their garden and never be planted. Sometimes the roots will compete, the moisture will be in the wrong spot, they won't have the sun, there won't be enough sun, or there's too much sun. And so they either wither or they don't get enough sun, so they get stunted. And so um, that they don't think may or it's not because they're not good at planting because that's what they would be like, oh, I'm just not good at gardening. It's just they didn't have that design, that structure. And they wanted all the things. And so we're going to understand that we can have things that we can interplant, but we don't need to crowd it, or underplant. Sometimes that can be a problem too because they don't have any shade from another plant. So we can talk about that as well. What part people don't talk about? Most people grow herbs, but they don't actually use. They uh, we kind of lie to ourselves sometimes. We plant things and they just sit there. It's like you'll see something and it'll inspire you maybe at the plant shop or when you're buying seeds, and you plant it, you spend all this time on it, but the jar on your shelf just sits there and you haven't done anything with it for months. Did you really need that 4 ounces of herb? And it was like, maybe it's I'm trying to think of one that I don't use that I've made. Um, I don't know, I use a lot of them. I don't know. Maybe you don't even like mint and you've got a ton of mint in your garden, So, personally, I do like to use a lot of my herbs, so it's hard for me to think about one that I don't use. Um, I don't know. Well, one year I grew a ton of rosemary and I didn't need that much. I just like I overdid I had like a lot of rosemary. And so just making sure that you plant the right amount as well. So it isn't just the goal to have a pretty garden, though we will be talking about flowers as well. Because herb garden, you think of this green garden, but actually there are a lot of flowers that are beneficial as well, and so we're gonna be integrating those in there too, because I did a whole unit last, spring on flowers that are also beneficial, so we'll definitely be adding those in there. So real life integration. So for example, this year I grew yarrow and I just love yarrow. It's actually one of the herbs that they use on the battlefield to save a lot of lives. They would bring the powdered with them, and when they had an open wound, they put it on there to stop the bleeding. But it also helps with that bacteria and stuff like that. So I was hiking and I rubbed the back of my heel raw. And so it was starting, I wasn't paying attention to it. I was just like, it's fine. And then it started to look a little bit red and inflamed, like it might be getting an infection. And if it is all the way infected, you definitely need to go to a doctor for that. I'm not saying don't go to a doctor. I'm not a doctor. But it was just on the very, you said you made history nurse. All of the history nerd and you really happy. Okay. I'm glad. Yeah, I love that about Yara. That's one of my favorite stories to tell about it. But yeah, so it was starting to look inflamed. And so I took my Yara tincture that I had from the garden that I made in the fall, and I put a little bit on it. And I'm telling you, the inflammation went down, the redness went down, and actually it's starting to dry out. So instead of it me like having those herbs that I'm not using. Oh, and another example that I didn't even put on here because it just happened. My son was having some digestive issues, and shiso is really great for combating a lot of digestion. They actually use it in Asian with sushi and Asian meals because it helps combat anything that bacteria and stuff that might be in sushi. And so I put that in his tea, and I actually have some in here right now. And he drank that, and he's starting to feel a little bit better. And so that was something that I dried from my garden, and I didn't even know that it was beneficial when my friend gave it to me. But planting those and finding those herbs that are you're actually going to use are really going to help you out throughout the season, not just in the summer when you can grab it, but you can dry it and use it later. Because this shiso was just dried and I just made it into a tea. I'm talking really fast, guys. Sorry. I'm just really excited because this is what I'm pumped about. I love sharing this because this is something I'm really passionate about. And so the structure problem. So most people don't think about the root depth, especially in pots, or like if you have a rocky soil that's like, for instance, my side yard, it's got rocks pretty shallow, so I can't put a lot of root vegetables over there. I did make a raised bed, and so I can there. Um, okay, I'm glad. Good. She likes my speaking cadence. So spreading, or like, so spreading within a raised bed, um, the moisture patterns, like where maybe your gutter leaks, and that's going to be a moist area. That might be a great place to put a moist herb as long as it doesn't need too much more sun. Sunlight is super important. The climate, because if you're planting herbs too early, that's going to hurt you. If you're planting them too late, they may not have enough time to actually get the root growth that they need, or flower if they're flowering, or whatever. We're going to be talking about that too. The types of garden that they want. So there are several different types of garden. You don't have to have a rows of garden. That is the traditional way that, like big pharma is doing it, but there are several different ways, and we're going to go over all the different types. I've experimented with a lot, and so we're going to go over a ton of different, and even ones I haven't tried yet. So plants, roots, root herbs, or plant rooted herbs in shallow containers can be cause crowding, and it can stunt the growth. And if you plant too much, it may not even come up. And then, if you rush it, you can freeze. And so the design, you end up with a bunch of plants that you didn't that you paid for, but you didn't get anything out of. So the emotional cost of that too is something we need to think about. So not only are we buying a plant, say a $30 plant that's going to die because we're putting it in the wrong place, we're putting it in the wrong conditions, or the emotional cost of feeling like you're a failure, like this guy here, that's like, oh my goodness, I planted all these things, and they didn't work out for me. Maybe he put all these shade plants in full sun over there, or maybe it's too dry. It looks like that soil's pretty dry. So making sure we know how to water it, we know how to take care of it once it's in there. That can be heavy. And also, it's cheaper to plan than to get a bunch of plants. I mean, I bought a ton of plants before, like when I first started. I bought a ton of plants and they all like nothing produced like it should have. I mean, maybe like mint, you know. Holy basil has always been one that I was able to grow even at the beginning. So that might be a good beginner plant for you guys. Um, but Bloom and Balance changes this. Bloom and Balance replaces the guesswork and the design. Not overwhelming, not rigid design, because this is going to be based on your sunlight, your sun, your root depth, your spacing, what your family actually is going to use throughout the whole year. This isn't going to be random. We're gonna make sure that we plant them at the right time so it's not freeze, or you're not frozen. Oh, you're not frozen from paralysis, and there's no chaos. Just design. It'll be so much more simple. So what are you going to get inside? You're going to have an herb selection guide based on your needs. So, what does that mean? Because I feel like I keep like saying that to people and that's confusing. But based on like, say, just like I had mentioned about my son, like say you have some digestion. I have first aid in there. So like those are a lot of the herbs that you're going to be like, okay, this is what I need to go to when either we've got a cut, we've got a stomach issue, maybe we've got a fever, things like that. That's going to be in that section. Maybe you have a chronic thing that you are always bloated, you always have a lot of you have a sluggish digestion, or we're going to figure out what you need, and then we're going to plot that. If I haven't already put it in there, I'm going to put it in there as we go. So that's why I love this, because I'm going to be right there beside you. We're going to have live Zooms that we're going to interact. They're not going to be huge and long. They're not going to be drawn out, because I'm not here to take up all your time. High blood pressure, yes, I will put that in there. I think I have a cardiovascular already in there, but I'll just make sure that's in there. Um, Moisture, and so we're going to talk about moisture of the soil, and matching the area that you put it in, and making sure that they're just watered. So the tools would be like, what type of, are you going to water, overhead water it, things like that. The root depth and spacing charts, we're going to have frost dates, when the plant is going, or like in your zone when the frost dates are. We're going to do um, custom design guide and tools. So this is going to help you visualize it. So if you're a visual person, the phytochemical edge, I have the hormonal, I have the hormone cycle in there. So, but yeah, I can focus on that too. Um, I can go into more depth. Yeah. And then, so custom garden design with guide tools. So this is going to help you visualize it. There's two different ways you can print it off and do it by hand if you're like more of a I want to like map it out, but there's I also have a digital tool as well. And then guides for garden styles. So, like I said, there's different garden styles. So, we're going to talk about that. And then guides that help you plan easily. So, I'm going to have a workbook or a design, a garden design guide that's going to help you like every week. There's going to be things that you're going to be writing down in that, and that's only if you that's how you work. I know everybody's different. Some people would rather just keep a PDF. They just like to wing it, but I have that available for you if you want that. So this is going to give you a visual of like a tangible thing that you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Okay. And so the value of this, we're going to have 6 live coaching. So because this is 6 weeks long. So the value is 630. We've got custom the workbook 75, herb climate match, which is $40, a sun and location planner, which is $60, and then the soil setup secrets for 50. We got the companion planting guide for 75, templates checklists, that's uh 30, and then personal garden plan overview is 150. So and we only have a couple spots left for the 6 months membership, but that's a 6 months um, membership to the Wild Path. And if you aren't already in my group, the Wild Path, we check in weekly. So that I like that because even after the 6 weeks, you have 6 months to kind of touch base with me if there's something that you want to work on. And you can also be learning about more herbs that you might be wanting to put in there later if you want to. So the value is 1,200 and $72, and that is not what we are going to be doing for you guys. For since you're on this call, you get 10% off. The total price would be 360, but you get 10% off today, and we are going to be picking a winner. So you also have payment plan options. Actually, the three payment is no longer available, but it was available. We will have that weekly support and accountability. So the live calls, we'll have quick weekly check-ins to keep you on track. Check like we'll troubleshoot. You can ask me any questions, so you don't fall behind and you stay on top of it. Because I know personally, if I'm like given a bunch of stuff, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll get to that later. But if we're all doing it together, you can actually pull from each other too. So I like that. You'll have that opportunity to pull from each other and yeah, learn from others along the way. I was getting ahead of myself. So do you guys have any questions before we get into the giveaway?